The governor, in my mind, absolutely will call a special session. Does he?
Oh, he has to. I mean, John, what's the alternative? Just letting the 40% increase in property taxes occur? I mean, they run the state. They will pay dearly if they let that happen.
As we record this, it is the day after the night of the election where, well, not a big surprise, Proposition H8 went down in flames. To talk about it and so many other things, Dick Wadhams, Republican strategist du jour. Quickly, I wasn't all that surprised. I was surprised by the margin of the defeat of Proposition HH. I thought it would be a lot closer, but it went down by 40 points.
Yes.
Surprised?
I was surprised by the margin as well, John. It really felt to me the last 2 or 3 weeks that it wasn't a steady decline. And you guys here at the Institute had really done a great job in your analysis and your publications in laying the groundwork for the public saying, no, this is not what we want. But it just seemed like it was all coming together at the end. But no, those early returns, I thought, well, these can't, this won't hold up that big.
Right.
But it did.
And it was fast. The language of the initiative, the reason why Gallagher was repealed 2 years ago was the fib on the it said without raising tax rates, which was a fib. This one was even more diabolical because the legislature gets to write their own ballot language. When I put something on the ballot, when any citizen puts something on the ballot, it goes to the title board. They write what we read on the ballot. When the legislature gets to do this, the legislature gets to lie. Let me put a little credit, and this sounds crazy. Kyle Clark of Channel 9 gave a signal to all the media and to his viewers.
I agree.
This is BS.
Yes.
Now, he didn't come out and say it, but he said this is a lie. He said, come on, Governor, we're not stupid. I think that gave a signal not only to voters, but it also gave a signal to the Denver media. It's okay to give voters the truth about this, that this does take away your Tabor refunds. And once the media got on board, and this thing was gone. Independents, Ben Murray, did a lot of work, and I credit Kyle Clark, and I credit a lot of other media for telling the truth on this one and giving it the okay. That's why back in May, I knew this thing was a turkey. I knew this thing was going to go down, and I didn't worry about it.
Yeah.
Do I have something right there?
No, I think that was one of the most important turning points of the debate was Kyle Clark. I agree. I think that must have shocked Governor Polis and his Democratic friends. Yeah. But it was other things too, John. It was the Denver Post endorsement editorial. I read that twice, and I thought, what are they saying? It was the most convoluted editorial endorsing something I could ever. I mean, they were trying to justify something I don't think they wanted to even endorse. Was kind of how I read it.
Well, they know that they have to endorse anything that's anti-Tabor.
Yes.
That's just
yes.
It hurts Tabor. We're for it.
But and yet the endorsement by the Colorado Springs and Denver Gazettes, of course, was on point, easy to understand. This is why this is a turkey. I mean, it really drives home to me the arguments were much more powerful on the con side than the pro side because they wrote such a horrible bill.
AFP Colorado, Americans for Prosperity Colorado, give them a lot of credit for knocking on doors and doing the work. Talking to them, it was really clear. People loved it when they read the ballot. Get 3 minutes with any voter to explain what it really did, and they got angry.
Yeah.
They really got angry, not just for what it did, but for the way it treated voters.
Yes.
Of how dare you sell us something like this? And I think the underlying tone really started to, in a viral way, people got it.
Yeah.
The low turnout guaranteed its defeat.
I think so too. I think a lot of liberals probably thought this isn't even worth showing up. Maybe I don't know, but clearly people who did show up were motivated to vote no. And what's interesting to me, John, I looked at Jeff Cohen and Arapahoe numbers. I'm sure you did.
I did too. Those were the two counties.
And
once I saw those go down there, game's over.
Exactly. And what's interesting to me is that means a whole bunch of these unaffiliated voters and people who just hate Republicans and have voted against Republicans because they can't stand Trump. They said we are not going to vote for this, and it tells me that this state. And you and I have talked about this many times, and I've been hopeful that this was the case, and I think this is another indication of it. This state is still right of center in terms of fiscal and tax issues and economic issues. And if we can ever get past the stench of Donald Trump impacting every Republican candidate, that we can be competitive again with Republican candidates who can talk about the issues and not about Donald Trump. And so, I think that was a significant event last night as well.
We're recording this, and it's the morning of, all right?
Right.
We can't get any more fresh than this. Mm-hmm. When people hear this, there'll be other news. Mm-hmm. How significant was it that the governor was not just out of town last night, he was out of the state? Where was he?
He was allegedly in Wyoming.
Allegedly.
That's what I heard on the TV last night, that there's some kind of a National Governors Association event in Wyoming. And it very well could be true. I mean, but to me, that tells me he knew he was not going to win this thing. Because you and I both know, if he thought he was going to win a big victory last night, he would have been here accepting the accolades and the TV cameras. So he had a good excuse to get out of town.
This was his bill.
Yes.
He had to sign this.
Yes.
Unlike other referred measures.
Yes.
He had to sign this, Senate Bill 303, for all of this silliness to happen. And it was his. He came out, he had 2 years to come up with a replacement to Gallagher's repeal. And he waited to the very end, and this was all him. This was he and Steve Fenberg, the president of the Senate. And he's out of the state.
And by the way, Fenberg wasn't around last night either. He didn't show up at the pro-HH rally, and he would not return, I'm told, or I heard, that he would not return calls from the media last night.
After you and I are finished chatting, there's got to be a statement from the governor's office. You can't have an embarrassment like this. He did put out a statement that I passed, which of course it did. This was, can we have more of your tax money for cigarettes?
Yeah.
Of course I was going to pass. The governor, in my mind, absolutely will call a special session. Does he?
Oh, he has to. I mean, John, what's the alternative? Just letting the 40% increase in property taxes occur? I mean, they run the state. They will pay dearly if they let that happen. It almost would be good for us. I don't want to pay 40% of my property taxes. But you know what? If it would mean politically damaging them, let it go through. I remember last May.
That's a very cruel statement.
Yes, it was. The last May, John, when they rammed this through at the last minute in the dark of night, remember thinking this really shows how arrogant Jared Polis and his Democratic majorities are. They think that these Democratic majorities are forever. They're permanent. It's like enshrined in the Constitution. The Democrats shall always run Colorado. They got a big dose of reality last night. And if they don't know that this actually, if they can't see that they've got to rethink their arrogance, I think they're whistling past the graveyard, as they say.
Let's keep going with Jared Polis.
Sure.
I think you're right. There'll be a press conference. He's got to face the music on this. But it's more than just this one issue. A few years back, he was a proponent of Prop CC, which did the same sort of thing, but in a much more honest way. He lost, and he can say, hey, I was just a proponent. It wasn't my thing. We listened to the people. This was his. All right, this was his thing. It was his name. He was out in front. He did the debates. He did the commercials. He owns this. How big of a defeat is this for Jared? What damage does it do? What does it mean for him as the governor, as a nationally held Democrat, as a guy who keeps getting whispered for if Biden doesn't actually run, he might be one of the guys who could run for president. What does it mean?
There were so many national stories last night, John. I don't think it got the national attention it deserved in terms of just looking at the national coverage this morning. But I think overall, this hurts him badly. Had it lost narrowly, okay, you could build a case. It was a hard-fought campaign. Both sides made their big case, their cases. They spent a lot of money, but he fell short. He got walloped last night, 60 by more than 20 points. That is a rejection. That is the voters of Colorado saying, you are dead wrong on this, Governor, and we don't trust you on this issue right now. I think that greatly weakens him. I think it also greatly weakens those massive majorities in the legislature. And like I say, I mean, if we could ever get past this Trump thing, John, and nominate candidates who will talk about the issues like that, we could actually win some legislative races next year. But it all depends on what the climate is and what kind of candidates we nominate. So we'll see.
I hope, this is a hopeful thing.
Yeah.
It was a small turnout election. People's memories are fickle.
Mm-hmm.
Those who follow this, and what really got me, and I knew this thing was dead right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. Again, the moment Kyle Clark said, Governor, we're not stupid,
yes,
it was dead. When I looked at the back and forth on Nextdoor, the app,
mm-hmm,
when I looked on Reddit and read people on the subreddit for Denver, and they were trashing it, not because they love Tabor, but they were trashing it because it lied, because it was bad for renters. It was, those evil landlords get a break, but we don't. It was really amazing how well those people who would vote were tuned into it.
yes.
That really surprised me. And so it was obvious. Does that stick? My question is, do they learn, wait a second, the same people who wrote that diabolically lying falsehood that you caught on to, they're the same ones who are doing all the other economic damage to the state. Does that click that it's not just the governor, it's the whole machinery down there that's making life so inexpensive here in Colorado? People are feeling it. You can't go out for lunch without paying $50 mm-hmm. for a sit-down lunch. The economic pain in Colorado, the crime in Denver, it's all connected. And I don't know if the switch has been turned and if HH is the turning point yet for people to go, oh, now I get it. These people have gone too far.
I think it could, John. I guess we don't know for sure, but I think it could, because I think all these things are coming to a head: crime, homelessness, inflation. Now this property tax issue, HH. I think it is coming to a head, but I hate to keep coming back to it. But once again, it won't make any difference at all. If frankly, if Donald Trump is our nominee next year, he might be competitive in a bunch of states outside Colorado. He is not competitive here, and that will obscure any ability for us to take advantage of these issues that you mentioned.
Let me push you on that, because let me do my job.
All right.
You are so wrong on that, people are going to say, because the election was stolen. It was stolen here. It was stolen every place.
Yeah.
All right, and therefore, he can win here.
I understand.
All right, he can win here.
I understand.
And we just need to have clean elections. And if we had really clean elections, we're going to find that Trump-like candidates will win here. You're just wrong.
Yes.
So put a little meat on your assertion that if Trump is a nominee, Republicans can't win here.
The trouble, John, is that these newcomers who came to Colorado in the last dozen years, 800,000 of them, and they're largely younger, they're more liberal in their social attitudes. I've always felt like they were more conservative on fiscal and economic issues than what we think. These are the people that despise Donald Trump, and it's reflected in the returns for the last 3 election cycles. But I think last night's results show that in Jeff Cohen Arapahoe, When you lose those 2 counties by 20 points, so that's more than just Republicans voting against you. That's a bunch of unaffiliated voters and some Democrats. And then even in Denver County, it only carried, HH only carried Denver County by like 55-45.
Right.
And that is, think about this. Democratic candidates were winning Denver County by 85% in this last election. So how something happened last night where people finally said, no, we're never going to carry Denver County again. But you know what? The margin, I think, could be much lower than it's been. So I think this is finally the opportunity for some of these voters who have instinctively voted against Republican candidates to say, you know what? I think we need to rethink this. But not if they think a bunch of election-denying Republicans who are still clinging to Donald Trump as their hero are the nominees. If that happens, we will. Nothing will come of what we saw last night. Nothing.
You're right. If Trump is on the ballot, remember the turnout a couple of years ago was massive.
Yes.
The 2020 turnout was massive.
Yes.
And it was all about Donald Trump. Turn your eyes to, I think it was Ohio. A constitutional amendment protecting abortion rights won, and this was, I believe it was a citizens initiative. I don't think it was referred.
That's right.
And so still, that issue, 3 years later, is still remarkably hot. And that's still going to be a big issue. There could be an initiative on 2024 on the Colorado ballot to put constitutional protections for abortion in Colorado. That'll be another big driver, whether or not Trump is on the ballot.
Right.
So, presidential elections are still going to bring folks out. And if that's on the ballot, that's going to be a big driver, and it's going to hurt Republicans in 2024, with or without Trump. So you've got that issue, which is also a huge driver against Republicans in this state. This is not a pro-choice state. This is becoming a pro-abortion state. When you have the governor signing a bill that outlaws the abortion reversal pill. For people who don't know, you can take an abortion pill. It's a 2-pill thing. If you change your mind after the first pill, there's a reversal pill, which is now illegal. So it's not Republicans that are up in women's uteruses. It's Democrats who are taking away your choice, which is really bizarre.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Let's widen this a little bit to next year, and then I want to go back to some other races.
By the way, the other abortion initiative that might be on the ballot next year is to repeal the public funding of abortion ban. I think the Democrats are toying around with that, of course, and that was passed initially in 1984. It's been on the books forever, and they might be going after. I think they would be playing with a little bit of fire if they put that on the ballot, because I think even pro-choice people instinctively don't want public funds for abortion. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it's been. This will be the first time since it passed in they tried to repeal it in '88 and failed, and so I think that could be a stretch too far. But we'll see.
I don't know.
Maybe not.
This state has changed.
Yeah,
we're old men.
And John, I love your characterization. We are now a pro-abortion state. We're not pro-choice. We're pro-abortion. I think you're right about that. I hate that.
I still hold to my suspicion. Biden is not going to be the nominee. I can't say the same thing about Trump right now.
I know.
You're more tuned into that world than I am.
By the way, I mean, this past weekend when the New York Times came out with that poll of the six, that I think that will be seen as
for those who are not following. There's a poll now that shows Trump leading Biden in the head-to-head, but also in the 6 swing states, which is something that I've been saying for a while. In a head-to-head with Biden, I think Trump wins a rematch. Yeah,
he's winning 5 of the 6 swing states that elected Biden to begin with, and a couple of those states, Biden it's beyond the margin of error. I mean, Trump has big leads. I think if I were a Democrat, I think I'd look at that and I'd say, we've got to get rid of this guy. Somehow we have got to find another, because it also shows that other Democrats would actually be leading Trump in those states if Trump is not our nominee, or if Trump is our nominee. So I think that more and more you're going to see them, and then you have Axelrod talking about how they need to get rid of Biden. I think you're going to start seeing this more and more. People like Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, I think in the background are going, I'm a hell of a much better candidate than this guy we've got in there. We need to get rid of him. Then she wants to run, of course. I think there's more turmoil in the Democratic Party right now than you and I appreciate.
And now you have, I'm blanking out on his name, who's already an announced candidate as...
the guy from Minnesota.
You're supposed to know these names better than I'm supposed to. Stop being old.
What's his name?
Yeah, you
anyway.
Right.
And Democrats can't even tell you who it is.
And so if these polls continue, you're going to start seeing then more open challenges. And so if Gretchen Whitmer goes in and somebody else goes in, then all of a sudden, Katie bar the door.
And Gavin Newsom in California,
Right.
he's all but running right now.
Right.
No, I think you're going to start seeing that, and I think Democrats are going to have to come to grips with the fact they've got a loser there, and they've also got to come to grips. I mean, John, watching Biden is painful. He is not physically capable of being president, and I question whether he's mentally capable of being president. I really do. And
all right, so play this out for me.
Yeah.
A few more people throw their hat into the ring. At some point, Biden gets reality, steps out, and then they have an actual open race there. Republicans do what?
Well,
You know Trump isn't leaving no matter what. And like in 2016, the left is turning him into the nominee, which is the more they prosecute him, the more legal action against him. They're just keeping him in the news. They're making him a martyr. It helps him become the primary candidate, which might work against Gretchen Whitmer. I don't know.
There's only one way to topple Trump, and I've felt this all along. That is, if someone can run close enough to him that even if he wins Iowa, it will be seen as a defeat because it's not some 50-point victory. That somebody can stay within 10 points of him, which would be seen as a defeat. And then that person goes on to New Hampshire and South Carolina and actually beats him. Right now, it's now a three-person race. You got Governor DeSantis of Florida, and former Governor Nikki Haley of South Carolina. They are the two potential challengers to Trump. They're now engaged in their own little kind of mini primary that's going on. I don't care which one. I like them both. I'd be fine with either one of them. But somebody's got to make a run at Trump in Iowa, so that they're credible to go on to New Hampshire and then actually Nevada and then South Carolina. And if it doesn't happen in Iowa, John, I don't think it's going to happen. We're stuck with Trump at that point, and that's the sad thing. But his base is not going to leave him. They're going to stick with him. So,
even if he's behind bars.
I don't think he'll ever go to jail, even if he's convicted. And frankly, I don't want him to go to jail. I don't think that's a good look to jail a former president, even somebody as reprehensible as Trump is. I just don't think that's a good look. That's not our society. I don't know.
Well, they're opening up a door now that this is standard fare.
Yeah.
Whoever the next president is, that's what's going to happen and set back
it.
for it. It's a bad look. All right, bring it back to Colorado.
All right.
Mike Coffman won re-election for what will be his last term as...
Actually, he can run again. They have a three-term limit in Aurora.
Really?
He actually could run for a third term after this one. Yeah. Anyway.
I think the demographics there change so much. I think it's getting harder and harder for him to win that race. Give me your take on his election.
Mike, there's nobody comparable to Mike. I mean, look what he did 3 years ago on the streets of Denver with the homeless thing. I mean, wherever two or more Aurorans are gathered, Mike is there. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. And I think he has a lot of goodwill from his days in Congress, even though he lost. I think, and the way he works the minority communities. I mean, there is not an ethnic festival or celebration that he doesn't go to. I mean, he's got such deep roots. But you're right about the demographics. That's changing by the day almost. But Mike is an extraordinary person, and probably nobody could have held on to that like he has.
There is no harder working man in show business than Mike Kaufman, which is amazing because he doesn't have the natural politician skill. You think of Ed Perlmutter or Scott McGinnis, those kind of guys who have that that Irish politician, how you doing, and they just who just feed off of going and talking to crowds and talking to people and hanging out in the supermarket, and you can just see that they're extroverts and they just love it. I've never gotten a sense of that, and I've been friends with Kaufman for a long time. He does it, and it's pure discipline because he loves serving the community. And that's part of serving the community.
But John, when he did that homeless thing, that slept on the streets for a week, I remember thinking he had the most extraordinary analysis of homelessness and what that I had never heard anybody do before. And it really crystallized for me, not that I hadn't studied homelessness, the differences between those who were on the streets. And it crystallized
There's some categories of the people who are there between the alcoholics, those who are drug addicted, and those who are mentally ill. Yeah,
I thought he did an immense public service, I think, by doing that. It was more than just the courage to do it. It was the conclusions he reached and really showing these people are beyond hope. These people really need our help. These people we need to do. I mean, and his whole crystallization of the housing first versus treatment first. That whole debate, which I think that's why Mike Johnston, who I like very much, and I know you do too, but I think it's going to fail.
Yep.
Because I don't think that it's not going to work. And Mike really crystallized that.
The rest of anything else from last night that really popped out to you? The school boards kind of went up and down and up and down, and depending where you were, down in Colorado Springs. They really went to reform boards. Up in Woodland Park, it seemed to go in the other direction. What do you make it of all?
Well, and DPS. I mean, look what happened. 3 reformers, one in Denver apparently, and I got to hand it to Mike Johnston. He didn't have to get involved in that Denver Public School Board race, and he did. And I think that ad they put up was very effective, where he endorsed 3 of the people, and they won. They all 3 won, and I think that's to his credit. But Denver public schools are still horrible, and that's not a majority, the 3 new ones. But I think that was significant. So,
will it change anything?
Not immediately, but at least there will be other voices on that board that are not crazy and that are not irresponsible, and are actually make the schools worse. And so I think it will change some of the tenor of the school board.
Let me take one in my hometown of Boulder, which was Citizens Initiative, which was 302. This is an odd little one to come out of all places, Boulder. But it was to keep homeless from putting up tents close to sidewalks and paths. They did it taking a look at propane tanks and saying you can't have propane tanks next to schools or sidewalks because they're dangerous, and keeping them away from schools and keeping them away from sidewalks. It was something that said, City Council, since you're not doing anything about these encampments, we the people are going to do something about it. And it passed overwhelmingly.
Did it really? I had not heard that.
In Boulder.
Wow.
Because Boulderites have seen their beautiful city become trashed by the fentanyl-fueled criminals that Denver's seeing, and seeing the violence, and seeing the assaults, and seeing the crime, and they're worried about particularly their kids. And they called it something, safe something, but it passed overwhelmingly.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, and it kind of goes back to our earlier discussion, John. I think something is going on in Colorado right now that we could see at the ballot box in 2024 and beyond. I mean, that's remarkable when Boulderites do that.
Right.
So,
It means, I agree. On the issues.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
I'll go back to what I said years ago. Things have changed. The Republican Party in Colorado is no more.
I agree.
It
Totally.
does not exist. And when I hear people say, "What are we going to do to fix the party?" I've already years ago, 8 years ago, I already went through my grieving stages for the Republican Party. Kubler-Ross, 5 stages, anger, denial, all the rest. And so people are still doing that now. What are we going to do to fix the party? There is no party. In 8 years, we might have a party. There are certain things we have to accept. This is a pro-choice, pro-abortion state. This is a pro-weed state. That's not going to change. This is a pro-LGB state. That's not going to change. This is a pro-environmental state.
It is.
These things are set. If you want to change any of those, you will be unsuccessful.
I agree.
All right. But I am not at all convinced that this is a pro-tax state.
No.
I am not convinced that this is a pro-regulation state. This is not a pro-crime state.
No.
And I don't believe this is a pro-woke state.
No.
That is a whole different thing.
Yes.
And so you can still protect the environment and have your gas stove.
Yes.
You can still protect abortion rights and still keep taxes low. There is a path here.
I agree.
To bring back, I won't use the word libertarian because that people get freaked out by that word, but there is a path here, and Colorado could become one of the first post-Republican states.
I love it. Yeah.
And but we got to think in a brand new way.
Yeah.
And defeat of HH is yet another example of that happening.
Yeah.
I will say, although I don't see him in the mold of what I'm talking about, the fact that we have an unaffiliated mayor of Colorado Springs is another example of people are open to the idea of someone who's not a Republican.
Yeah, and John, I think it also relates to this whole debate about unaffiliated voters voting in the primary. The people within the Republican Party right now that, we can't have them voting in our primary. We need to keep our process pure. The only way we're going to get competitive is if we open ourselves to the 48% of the electorate that registers unaffiliated. And it goes to what your point is. These people are more liberal on the issues you pointed out. But until we find, and the only way to communicate with them is to hopefully invite them into the Republican nomination process, because that still exists. And I don't understand this thinking that, we can't prostitute our process by allowing non-Republicans to participate. Well, there's only 25% of us now. There aren't many of us around.
I am no longer a Republican.
I know you're not. Yeah, I know. Well, a lot of my friends have disaffiliated.
Well, I live in Boulder. What reason is there to be a Republican? There's no Republican primary.
Right.
There's no reason to be.
So I think it goes to your point. I think we have got to look at the state in a different way than we ever had before. Because there will be some entity that's called the Republican Party. We still are going to be nominating people, I think, on a partisan basis. And the only way we do that is by nominating candidates that recognize this reality. So,
Or it goes the other way.
Well,
and the other way is that the Republican Party does what the Libertarian Party did, or the Constitution Party, and they close their nomination, and they make it into a minority party.
yes, there you go.
And if it does, okay, and then at which point it frees other people to either create a new party or to run as unaffiliated.
Yeah.
And, how to put this? Party doesn't matter. Policy matters. I think we get so strung up on the idea of party because we were raised that way.
Yeah.
And we have this loyalty to party.
Yeah.
But party is a way to get to policy.
Exactly. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
We elect these people. Why? Because we want Republican rule? Who cares about Republican rule? The idea is that that is a step to pass the bills that we need to get there. We have Bernie Sanders. He's not a Democrat.
No.
We can have people who caucus with the Republicans. We just need them to win.
Yeah.
You know, so I am not afraid of the Republican Party collapsing.
I understand what you're saying. I understand. And frankly, it is collapsing in front of our very eyes right now.
Right.
And it's going to continue that way. I hate to say it. And that's ironic because we have so many other positive indicators. Colorado could be returning to a more competitive issue situation and policy situation. So we'll see.
We throw one more at you.
Yeah.
So we have all this dynamics on the Republicans. We love to talk about Republicans.
Yeah.
It's meaningless in Colorado. There is no Republican Party. Flip on the other side, the super majority party that could fix the property tax issue with a wave of their hand. They have all the powers. They own the courts. They own the executive branch. They own the legislative branch. The super majority. They have everything. We still always talk about Republicans. The media still likes to talk about Republicans, even though we have no power. The fissures that are happening inside the Socialist Party, the Democratic Party, with the socialists on one side and then the crazy progressives, are starting to...
They really are.
And the Israeli war is breaking it apart even faster.
Yes.
So the dysfunction, we keep loving to talk about it on the conservative side, the dysfunction on the left. Talk to me about that.
You know, at the end of the legislative session, I remember the allegedly moderate rural Democratic Speaker of the House from Glenwood Springs. That she was such a moderate, and I remember thinking, I don't believe it. Remember, she apologized to the Democratic Socialists and the Democratic caucus in the House for not listening to them more earnestly. And I'm thinking, well, here we go, sucking up to 5 members right now, but there are more of them all the time. It just shows you that far left of the Democratic Party, they're running the joint right now. They really are moving the party left. The special session coming up, John, you know it's not going to be a tidy little process. There's going to be a lot of, some of the Democratic Socialists won't want to do anything about property taxes because they love taxes. So
they do nothing, they get more money.
So that could be a lot of fun, this special session, if that's what occurs.
But the dysfunction is now their dysfunction.
Yes.
You know, for so many years we saw the fight between Republicans and rhinos. Now we're seeing the dysfunction between socialists and just plain old progressives.
Yeah, and it's going to get worse. After this election, there will be more Democrats who are Democratic Socialists getting elected to the legislature. We're seeing it in the Denver City Council. I saw the headline today in the Fort Collins Coloradoan that more progressives are dominating the Fort Collins City Council. You're seeing it everywhere. So that is going to be more and more of a reality that is going to be fun to watch because we've had our problems, as you know.
Any other predictions?
I hope a year from now we're celebrating the election of a Republican president not named Trump. I hope that's what we're doing.
By the end of this year, will Mike Johnson have housed 1,000 homeless?
It won't make any difference. They will come up with some definition that they have, or they'll build a case. Well, we almost made it, John, I agree with you. I've heard you talk about this too. That it's hard not to like Mike Johnston. He is a good man. But he's just wrong on this. And he's going to. Denver's going to be like a magnet for more homeless. When they find out that they can get a free house or a free whatever, it's not going to deal with the problem.
What they're going to do is they're going to look at the definition of what is housing somebody, and it's going to be a 2-week period.
Right.
And yes, we've been able to put people into transitional housing for 3 days, 2 weeks, whatever, and we've milled people around over 1,000 of them through this program.
Yeah.
And of course, 500 of them left, but it doesn't matter. We got 1,000 of them through.
Right.
Goal met. And if it was, of course, George W. Bush landing on an aircraft carrier that said mission accomplished, they would have ripped him apart in the media, but this media will probably say, look what he did.
I'm actually a little more optimistic that the media will do the right scrutiny of this and will reveal the sleight of hand that could be played on this. I actually think they will be really digging into that. I hope they are. So
we'll see. Well, because the streets won't be cleaner.
Well, no.
The vacancy rates on office buildings will continue to grow. and the crime is not going to get better.
You come down here obviously every day. I come down here, every 2 or 3 weeks to II for a meeting or whatever. And it's always an experience. I don't come downtown very often anymore. And it's always fun to see what I see.
It's the finest.
And some of it's scary. I mean, I know just driving down the street, you kind of, when there's somebody standing right up against the lane of traffic, and you wonder, are they going to step in front of me? I mean, I got to tell you, it's kind of scary to drive down here. I know you feel that way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know.
That's interesting to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't have gotten it.
Yeah.
Dick, thanks for everything.
Thank you, John.
If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.